How's it going, guys? This is Evan with Underhill Bonsai, and today I'm going to be working on some bald cypress yamadori that were collected roughly about a year ago. Both of the bald cypresses that I will be working on in this video have been collected by Nate Murray. They were collected around the Franklinton area, roughly 15 minutes outside of town. He gained access to different ponds and other forested areas where he's constantly scouting out trees like this and other beauties that have wonderful flutes or really good taper or naturally occurring knees on them. This one here has a very nice slender tall trunk, and when it was chopped initially we kept a lot of that height so that we could take advantage of the little movement that's happening throughout this tree. The other tree I will be bringing on in just a little while has a little bit more of a stouter base and has a lot more thicker branching as opposed to the thinner, more natural feeling branching of this tree. As you guys can see, the base of this tree has some nice flare and some good surface roots that is happening right around the left side of the tree. When I spin it around here, you see that there is an overly large root right here that kind of throws off the nice symmetry that the root system has on this one side. But then as you get around to the other side here, the tree is a little flat. There are roots on here that can develop into bigger, more interesting roots in the future, such as this one here and this one here. If we spin around, there's a few other small ones like that. And there's potential for more root flare to occur over time. What I was hoping to do with this tree is create a flat top style bald cypress. That style would have been introduced in the late 70s and 80s by the late Von Banting, who had brought the style to the bonsai world with the innovation of showing people how to get good scale in a tree like this and not make the flat top feel over the top too broad, almost like a T-branch type structure. Instead, Von Banting's study of how the trunk line goes into the top branching can show the old character of the tree as it evolved from a juvenile, more colander-shaped tree into the sparse branching below and the wide solar panel-like top on more mature, more ancient trees in swamp areas. And so one thing that I have to consider with this tree is this very tall, skinny tree, but there is a lot of wonderful movement. Kind of up in this area here, there is a nice trunk line, and you can follow the grain as it kind of twists and goes up into the top end here. With measuring this trunk out, the trunk base is roughly here to here, and that's going to be not the flare, because the flare on this tree comes out to somewhere around 8.5 inches. The real trunk base of this tree is going to be somewhere around 3 inches, and that's visually. So I'm going to drop it to more of a 1:16, which puts us more at a 48 to 50 inches or in height or so. So that means that 48 inches kind of tops us out right at 4 feet exactly right there. And so that means I'm going to have to take out some of this portion of this trunk here where the chop is. I see a very nice grain pattern where the tree comes up and kind of goes off to the side here. And so I want to go in and kind of cut the tree out right there and do some carving and make some adjustments to the trunk line so that I can make a 2-scale flat top, tall, slender tree that you would see something kind of like in the Manchac swamps. Here's that wood grain I was talking about earlier. You can kind of see it right here, and you can follow this branch down to where the grain of the wood kind of does this little bit of a sideways and back to here again. And I want to carve this out and maybe leave a little bit of a gin in this area. I'm not sure just yet, because I could open this up and make it look like a dead wood feature where maybe part of the tree has broken off previously in a storm, or I could carve it into the case that I will have the tree heel over and make more of a nice even taper. For this type of work, I like to use a regular hand saw, or a branch saw is what it's normally called. You can buy them pretty easily and find them available at most hardware stores. So I'm choosing to do this work with a handheld saw just because I don't want to jar the tree too much in its container, as this tree's only been out of the ground for roughly a year. I'm choosing to remove part of this really long, lean branch that's coming off from right here. I do like this branch, and this is a branch that Nate chose to keep on the tree after collection, and I didn't remove it as well because there is a lot of good shoulder development from the wood grain here. It looks very natural. It's a very, very nice fused branch into the trunk, and so I don't mind keeping this branch. Also, there are plenty of latent buds running down right here on this secondary branch that's coming out, and I could very easily cut this branch back and further develop more bifurcation closer to the trunk with this branch. Plus, this is a flat top, so a little bit more longer lines and more elegance is allowed in a design like this. This will be gone back and cleaned up with hand tools a little bit later on to get that blunt looking edge off, so it kind of more tapers into this new piece of growth here. And when we're building out tree structure, mostly in bonsai work, we never want to run into things where we have bar branching or whorls. What we're seeing right here is a whorl of branches, and I'm going to have to pick and choose which ones I would just have to do away with, because this can be a very hard visual draw to this area. So I will more than likely have to remove, if not all of these branches, maybe leave one. We'll have to see. I'll have to step back and give it a little look. I do like the scale of some of these branches, but unfortunately I can't leave them if I want to keep this larger branch as, say, kind of secondary trunk line, or just a more developed branch further up on this flat top design. So I'm going to have to remove quite a good bit of these, especially something like this where it completely just cuts a line across. This branch here is permittable because it is lower. It's not competing for visual across the trunk line here. It is not drawing a line, although it is a little long, and there are opportunities for budding here. And this piece here, even though it is a bifurcation, just because it looks cool, and I know that the purpose of bonsai is to start building up these pads so that we can make a more believable tree structure, I still have to do away with this just because it's too far away from the main trunk here. I might be able to take advantage of this little branch later on. Whereas this right here would be more considered a desirable branch on a bonsai tree design, but unfortunately it does fall in line with this big large branch here, which kind of puts into question of, do I really want this branch now? I'm not going to make any really snap decisions on that just yet, but I will take some liberties of chasing this branch back and seeing how it looks with shorter branching on it. And maybe I'll like it better than this one, because this is a more workable, easier, pliable branch that I can bend, whereas this one, I'm not going to get much movement out of this big, thick piece here. I don't need these little spindly branches for now. These are close to the area that I'm going to be carving. This is going to be my potential new leader. And this branch here will more than likely be carved off, but I will leave it for maybe a gin feature for that section. One of the features about bald cypress, especially when you're doing a flat top form, is that the top branches tend to be the biggest and more lankier pieces that are developing that branch structure that turns into the what you would call solar panel type branching. Instead of more of a flat shape, it's actually more of a tree that is starting to kind of lean over on the top section, and then you'll have the branches come back in the opposite direction of that growth. And that's what makes that movement like this, and then off of those elongated pieces, and then you start building little wide off pieces off of that. And we'll kind of show the apex of, or the flat top apex of Von Banting's classic piece that is actually in the Natural Arboretum now. And you can see a really nice detail of how that canopy was built. And you'll notice that the top of that tree comes up and then gracefully moves to the side. Not an extreme slanting type angle, but more of a back and forth, and you can see how those branches emerge off the inside of that branch. Another thing about flat top bald cypress is that there are branches that are right below the flat top that tend to be a little more weak and spindly, and there's rarely any branching between there and the bottom part of the trunk. Since this is such a tall, slender tree, I'm choosing to do away with a lot of this lower stuff down here, because in reality, if this was growing in the swamps and wanted to do a real representation, here's a dead branch, do away with that automatically. If I wanted a real representation of what bald cypress look like in their natural environment, a lot of these lower branches just would not exist. So I like to design my flat tops with the notion that there is a branch that still exists down here from its juvenile age and is kind of turned into another trunk. And so I'm going to look at these branches and kind of think of which one is going to be the better choice for that little spindly weak branch that's still holding on. I'm trying to decide between these two branches. I don't know if I want it higher or lower. I'm choosing to go with this branch, even though it's a little lower. I think it's a little bit more of a better flow for this tree if this branch kind of comes out of this stronger looking root here, whereas it comes out kind of in that weird spot right here for this branch, and there's not enough supporting muscly feature here to really say that a branch is struggling and holding on with a little bit of strength left. And also, whenever I position this tree for its supposed front, I'm looking at a front that could possibly happen anywhere between here all the way to this zone here. I don't want to ever point this root directly towards the viewer. And also, I will be doing some carving to kind of minimize the mass of this root as well, so it feels more like two roots or a split root or something like that. And so, in the instance of this kind of cuts in front of that beautiful line that I really want to show up on this tree. So I'm back here at the top again, analyzing a few more of these shoots before I start wood carving. And I know that I'm going to draw myself a line through here to decide where I'm going to cut away. You can see I've chased down a lot of the branches that were on this tree, and so now we are to the point where there's a minimal amount of branches, but In reality, a lot of really great trees, if you go and count the number of branches on any given tree, if there's a tree that is very tall and slender like this, there are normally only about 3 to 5 branches on some of those trees. You can go and look at that, and I'm talking about main branches that emerge straight from the main trunk. And so currently I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 branches, you can say. So since this is such a tall tree, I will be removing more of these branches, and more likely this one will go. I'm not too sure about this branch either, and these two guys are kind of playing tricks with me, but I do love the older section of this, and I could do some woodwork with this and seal it up and make it interesting and kind of play off of this too. What I like to do right before I get too far into it is that I like to draw out the line of where I'm going to carve. And so I went ahead and just used my tool to kind of mark out the area that I'm going to carve out here on the top, so that I don't get away from my intention of design today. So I've worked my way through a little bit of carving here, and I was looking at the way that this branch, how I want it to taper into this new carving and chop that I'm doing right here. And I'm gonna have to remove this guy because I'm going to be relying on this branch as my top, and I want the taper to be nice and consistent right here. So I'm gonna have to remove this. And it's right on that line to where I need to carve it down. As you can see, I'm starting to get the general shape of the top of the tree here. And so I'm starting to follow this line to the trunk so I can have more of a graceful curve feel to it. And don't worry about this type of exposure of this heartwood here. Bald cypress recover from wounds like this very easily. And to some, this might seem like a bigger wound that you might have expected than what I would have given to this tree. But I have a couple of bald cypresses out here at the nursery that have almost completely rolled over, bigger chops and carves than this. But there is a section right here that I had mentioned earlier about maybe making a deadwood feature out of. And I'm going to carve down the middle section here, which I've already kind of started doing that, but I paused so I could kind of show the example what I'm thinking. And it's going to kind of look like it's breaking away, and there's going to be like a shard of it that was here before, so I can make this into a little gin type secondary branch structure thing that was popping off the side at one point. And so I'm going to go in and work this out and try to see if I can get some separation between these two. And what I'll be doing is sealing up all of these sections of it, and then this part right here, I will actually leave more exposed and not put wood sealant on it and wound healing paste on this section, and I will weather this and wood harden it a little bit and do a little bit of lime sulfur just to protect it. You can kind of see how I've gotten a little bit of the shape going on here. Instead of just going in and just using the wood carving tools to keep going, I'm going to go ahead and use a traditional set of gin pliers to make this deadwood feature more effective and more natural feeling. And now what I'm going to do after this is go in here and kind of smooth out this section. I wanted to make sure I got the shape correct before I started going in and adding details. This is our tree, more or less after the extensive wood carving session. Cut a lot of that work out because it took a lot of time to get in here and get this curve right to follow the really elegant line that's set up from the bottom of the tree here. But I think I captured the majority of it. And if I need to make adjustments in the future, then I could always go back in and do more wood carving and make that line a lot more clear. I also brought this piece of deadwood that will emerge from the section right here. Just a point of interest, something to make it look like there was once another branch here. Just wanted to take advantage of this big giant area that will be mostly deadwood until the tree begins to roll over, and it will heal. I mean, I've seen them, like I said earlier, I've seen them heal over much bigger wounds than this. And now I'm going to go in and put wire on all of the branches here and see if I can't manipulate it into some kind of flat top form. So this top section is very, very pliable. I can very easily bend it. There was some footage earlier on showing me hollowing out this heavy back branch, so that I can channel a piece of wire inside of it and then raffia it with raffia and some electrical tape, and then actually go in and bend it a little bit and give it more interest to make it a little bit more natural movement and less just straight. So I'm going to go through and choose the branches that I'm going to put wire. I'm going to put wire inside of this channel here, and then we'll do a little bit tweaking design and get the initial design of this tree underway. So this is the finished design work on the tree for right now. I see that there's a lot of growing to do, especially in this top part here. So what I've done is kind of pulled out this apical branch and given it plenty of openness, and just so that it has plenty of space to develop. And then this very top part right here, there's two pieces right here that have really nice adventitious buds just waiting to burst. And I'm going to see which one is the strongest, because whenever they go into full launch, I want to see which one is going to be my strongest leader, so I can just let it run freely and get this thickened, get some healing started down here. And I'm going to let this top just run and run from right here at this focal point. But then right here, I'm going to hope for some buds, and I do see plenty of latent buds. I'm going to hope for buds to pop up in this section, up in here. And so I'll start building out my flat top up here and start getting that nice, big, wavy openness instead of what you see sometimes in flat top bald cypress design. You'll see some will make almost like a T branch, like this, and it more or less should be like this instead. You can see that's starting to happen down here, and those weaker, shorter branches are down here. And so I showed earlier that I hollowed this branch, put a piece of wire in it, and rappied it so that I could bring it around from the backside and make it a very nice, strong good depth of field to this tree. I didn't want it to just point straight at the back, so I got a little bit of a nice bend into it, and then I'm going to go in later. Once it starts to set and starts to heal, I can take off the raffia, I can remove the wire from the inside, but I'm sure that will be in a year or two from now that I'll actually go in and start to do that once this branch regains strength. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in and I'm going to put wood glue and a mixture of bonsai wound healing paste onto this area, and I'm actually going to run it around this deadwood feature branch, and I'm going to paint up this entire area here just to seal it off so that we don't lose sap flow and moisture just comes out of this wound. I'm going to make sure I get all the stuff here. Also, when this begins to run, this branch, this top branch that will eventually turn into my trunk, will heal over this, and so I'm asking the tree to heal this much, to come about almost a 1/4 inch up right here to heal into this new apex. So here it is, the final design for this particular bold cypress. And so, like I said before, we're going to let the top run, we're going to start getting some callus roll right here and induce the taper even better. Let this back branch heal from this extreme bending that I did to it. I might even go back here later on once it's starting to set a little bit and actually bend it a little bit more to the side here, just so it's a little bit more of a back branch and less of just a straight back out of view branch. But I've got the wood sealant all up in here, and then I know it's a little odd, but I went ahead and have a deadwood feature just kind of planned out for this one spot. And so essentially what's going to happen as all this starts to roll over and heal, I will make sure that this piece of deadwood will stay here, and basically I won't let it roll over this piece right here. And if years come down to me changing the design of this tree, or maybe 1 year later on with the development of this tree I decide I don't like this piece anymore, it's as simple as just cutting it off and then letting the cambium roll over that section. But for right now, I think it's an interesting feature, and also this wound's going to be here for a while, so it doesn't hurt to have something interesting to help kind of embellish it a little bit. Apart from the fact that it has wood sealant over it, it's not going to be a very pretty thing to look at for a while, but this is bonsai, and bonsai does take a good amount of time to get right, to start seeing an actual tree in this. As far as what's happened now, this is the beginning. These are the bones of the tree. These are the primary branches coming off the main trunk. I've had the flat top forming right here with the smaller branches that kind of just, it almost like tapers in. So the trunk tapers up from the bottom, whereas on a flat top bald cypress design, it seems like the branching almost tapers back down towards, giving you that kind of opposing taper to the structure of the tree. And then I've got this lower branch, which is just the remnants of your smaller branches that would have been on the juvenile form of this tree, suggesting decades ago. I would say the rough estimate of the age of this design, because there are different styles of bald cypress, and we can depict different ancients of bald cypress. So I would say that this one in particular feels more like a 100-year-old tree, maybe in between the 100 and 200-year mark, as far as being in its design existence. The actual age of this tree is probably somewhere around, looking at the base of it, somewhere around the 50 to 60-year mark for bald cypress to start making this muscling texture. I went through with my brush here, and just simply by brushing away that very thick flaky bark that just kind of built up, now I can see the very nice muscly live veins that are happening up and down this trunk. So that's it for my part one of flat top bald cypress, and I'm doing this in memory of Von Banting's innovative flat top designs that he brought to bonsai in the early 70s and 80s. And I will pull up the next tree and just give you guys a sneak peek of the next tree I'll be working on in my part 2 of this video to kind of show you guys a second type of flat top creation.